when I'm at home, because otherwise my roommates would just hear me like yelling at furniture, like as I'm trying to move it around my apartment. Or
I
whatever.
definitely apologize to furniture when I like run into it.
Oh,
That's
yeah.
a thing that happens to me a lot.
Apologize.
Yeah. Or if I drop something and I'm like worried that it has been harmed, even if it's an inanimate object, I'm just like, I'm so sorry.
I'll do that if I'm worried that I broke it, and if I'm not worried that I broke it, I'll say ow.
Oh,
Yeah, that also happens.
In 5,
Okay.
wait, 4,
And then I'm just like, oh
3.
my god, are you kidding me? This is crazy.
Do you?
I know, I was waiting. And once the camera hit, I was gonna. Okay. Hi guys, welcome back to Youth Radio Live, episode 4. We'll be talking toxicity. I am Robert, I'm 16 years old, and I will be going into my junior year of high school.
I'm Desmond, I'm 20 years old, and I'm in my second year of college.
I'm Janai, I'm 15 years old, and I'm going into my sophomore year of high school.
So toxic relationships aren't necessarily romantic relationships, which is what we mostly think about when we first hear the topic. It could be like with your family, friends, yourself, food, whatever. It doesn't really matter. What, to you guys, I'm wondering, what is a healthy relationship and like what is a toxic relationship? Like what's the difference for you?
Well, for me, when I think about like healthy relationships, I think about like communication, and I think about like the dynamic between you and, or you know, one and the other person or people involved in like that relationship or group. And if that communication is healthy, like if everyone is invested in making sure that, you know, everyone else is heard, like, you know, if you're in a conversation with someone and you feel like they're appreciating what you have to say, they're not putting you down, and they're, you know, participating, and they like, then, and that's, to me, what makes a relationship healthy is just like listening and like communication. And a relationship that's like unhealthy or toxic is when that breaks down. So like someone like is putting you down or constantly like dismissing what you have to say, or like manipulating you or undermining you, or that can be subtle and that can be overt. But like, and every relationship looks different, and so toxicity looks different, you know, all the time. So that's what it means to me.
Janai?
Well, I would say, have to agree, a healthy relationship is communication, and like you're talking and you're like able to tell each other everything. It's not like, oh, it's one-sided and like you afraid to share your feelings, because sharing your feelings is like a big part of relationships, so you know how everyone's feel about what you're doing. I would say a toxic relationship is like you're scared to show how you feel because you don't want your partner to react in a certain way. Yeah.
I have to, sorry.
No, go ahead.
Going off that, like, I have to say, like, one thing though is that like too much communication can definitely be unhealthy. Like if someone treats you like you're their therapist, like even if it's a friend or a family member or like you know, a partner or even like a coworker, just like telling you everything and giving you way too much information about stuff that you either don't want to know about or stuff that scares you, like, and you try to tell them to stop and they don't, or like you feel like you can't tell them to stop because you're worried about their emotional reaction, that's definitely a sign that things are unhealthy.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think healthy relationships is communicating and, you know, showing affection to each other. It's kind of like, basically like an equal stance. Like you don't feel like you're doing too much, but you don't feel like you're not doing enough. Like it's like, it just feels right. It's kind of like a natural feeling. And then toxic relationships would be like you're not doing enough or you're doing too much or whatever. It just feels bad. Like it's just like a natural feeling to me. That's how I feel about healthy and toxic relationships.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, especially like boundaries are so important too.
Yeah.
Yeah. So like, have either of you guys ever been in a toxic relationship? And if you have, like, how do you come to realize that that's what was going on?
Oh, okay. I had a toxic relationship with a friend, and it was basically like an on and off friendship. And then eventually I just couldn't handle it anymore. Not like it was like getting too much, but like I got tired of it. It felt like the same routine going on and off and on and off. So I just like got bored, I guess, or whatever. So I was just like, okay, like I'm done with the friendship. Like this is completely over. So I completely cut him off, everything.
I have, in middle school, I was hanging around people, and I don't I think that they were toxic for me because they were doing things that I wouldn't normally do, and which caused my demeanor to change, like doing stuff that I didn't normally do.
Like what? Like
Not going to class, not doing my work, my grades were slipping, a lot of things.
Middle school. Oh my God. Okay.
What is your guys' experience with toxic relationships?
Like I definitely like have been in a couple toxic relationships. Like I've been in toxic like romantic relationships. Like some that have become toxic. You know, like things start out like okay, you maybe like there aren't red flags or you don't see them like immediately, but then like over time those problems like of either communication or maybe like there's dependency or like a partner is dealing with like something that's really interfering with their life that's interfering with my life, like that that's happened before. And like I kind of like there's one that I kind of realized that what was going on is like she was making me like responsible for her emotions in a lot of ways. Mm-hmm. Like how do I put this? Like basically every time she needed emotional comfort, she would like, just hit me up immediately and just be like, hey, this is going on. I feel so sad. And like, everything like, I need you to deal with this right now. And I'm like, okay, let me come over. And she'd be like, no, you can't come over. You can't do anything about it. You just have to sit here and listen to me like talk about it basically. And I'm like sitting here unable to do anything like, oh, okay, sure. And like this got like worse and worse, and like it got to the point where like I couldn't talk about my own problems without her derailing just because like she wouldn't be able to handle it, and she'd start talking about like everything that was going on wrong with her just because I had brought up like, oh I'm having a bad day, I feel like things suck, and she'll just be like, oh well me too, and then all this, and it like that's something that I can't deal with, and that became really unhealthy, and that's eventually why I like terminated that relationship.
Sounds like you had a job as a therapist without a PhD and you weren't getting paid.
Basically.
At the same time.
Yep, that's essentially what that boiled
Every
down to.
time she would have came to me with a problem, I would be like, $20 in the jar. You can put $20 in the jar if you're going to keep coming to me with this.
It's like a 24/7 thing, like when things get that like codependent too, because like they don't care if it's the middle of the night, you're sleeping, you have school or work or whatever in the morning. It's like, you need to deal with this. I'm sad. What are you gonna do about it? And it's like I can't do anything about it.
I think you don't realize, like, people, like, the question, experience in a toxic relationship. I don't think people realize they're in a toxic relationship until they're done with the relationship. Even after, some people don't realize it until, like, someone brings it up and then they finally take a step back and look at it. Like, there was, like, this quote where, like, you can't see the red flags if you're looking through a rose-stained glass.
Yeah.
Like, hello, perfect. Like, that's literally everything.
Yeah.
So there is no experience if you don't take a step back and experience it for yourself and actually see what the problem was or what was going on. That's how I feel.
Yeah, most definitely. Like it takes time to realize these things, and it's really hard when you're like directly involved in toxicity to be like, oh yeah, like this is really unhealthy, because you're trying to like either justify your own behavior or someone else's behavior.
I would have to agree with Robert. In a toxic relationship, you might often think, oh, they're doing it out of love. Like, they love me. That's why they're telling me to do these things. But sometimes it's just because they're trying to control you.
Where it's time for an ambulance to come by.
Why you gotta be like this? Why can't you just leave us nice people alone?
Yeah, why does there have to be a medical emergency right now?
I know, right?
What a terrible time. Who could ever go back to bed?
How dare they? Okay. So, we were talking about like experiences with toxicity.
I have a question.
Sure.
Have you ever tried to repair a relationship? Like when you, either like while you were in it or when you left, have you ever tried to repair it? And, like, if you, like, did, like, how did it turn out? Like, what happened?
Well, with my toxic relationship, I didn't try to repair. I was just like, oh, it's time for me to grow up and realize that I'm not supposed to be doing these things. I need to go further and into the right path.
Like when friendships or romantic relationships turn toxic, I generally try to with friendships, that's something that's if I know that you're toxic to me, I'm just gonna be like, nope, I'm done. No more texting, no more hanging out. You're not gonna talk to me, I'm not gonna talk to you. Get out of my life, basically. With romantic relationships, once I realize that things are toxic, it's it becomes very hard for me to want to stay in a relationship with that person. But the only time where I've really the only incidents where I've ever spent a lot of time and energy invested into fixing a toxic relationship is with family. Just because I mean it's hard because you don't want to just say forget you guys, I hate you, get out of my life, because they're the people who are a part of your who you are, for better or for worse. And so you're gonna want to hold on to that. But what do you do when they're bad for you? What do you do? And if they don't listen to you when you say that they're bad for you, it's what do you do? And so I've just tried to talk about my experiences over and over, and sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. But
well, I tried repairing a relationship, and it didn't really work out. It kind of backfired, actually, because I tried fixing it. It was fixed for a little while, and then because with this person, they were my best friend at the time, so we told each other everything. And so when we stopped being friends, I was like, okay, I need to stop that person, if they try to tell somebody something about me that they only know. So I tried stopping them, but it didn't work out. It backfired. And they started telling everybody, they started telling their little group everything about me, and eventually that kept
that's terrible.
building and going on. So when it turned back around, I went to school the next day, and somebody came up to me, they were like, hey, Robert, is this true? And I was like, I'm ready to jump off a bridge. I mean, not literally, but I was I felt so embarrassed. I was ready to go home at that point, but I had music class the next class, which was my favorite class, so I didn't go home because I wanted to stay for music.
Yeah, why friends who would spread information like that around, especially rumors, just that those aren't real friends.
Exactly.
Those are terrible people. Those are toxic people.
That's why I have no friends now.
Well, that's okay, because you're gonna make better friends.
Hopefully.
Have you guys ever tried to leave a toxic relationship?
Well, when I try to leave a toxic relationship, because I always stand back and I look at the moments between me and my friends. Of course I always look back and look at the good moments, that make me laugh. The moments where you'll be sitting in your room, and then you look at the text messages going back and forth, and you start laughing because you're oh, that was so funny at the time. But when I look at the moments, I'm okay, obviously something's going wrong here, I just go. I don't even, sometimes I'll try to fix it, and if that doesn't work out, then I just okay, obviously this isn't working, so maybe there obviously needs to be some separation here, so I just leave. It's easy for me.
Yeah, I mean, there are definitely times where I've just cut people off just because I know that they're not good for me. I had one friendship in particular that comes to mind that I kind of you mentioned was ignoring red flags. I was kind of just being oh, he seems like a cool person, and I'm just gonna stay friends with him because he hasn't done anything bad to me. But I knew that he has had exes who said that he was pretty messed up to them, but I kind of chose to ignore that. And then he started telling me all these weird things. He started going on and on about all his self-destructive tendencies and stuff like that to me. and like basically trying to use me and like my presence to like justify and enable him, but also like to keep an eye on him and like basically take care of him when he was going through like a hard time. And like that was very hard for me. It took a lot of energy to, you know, maintain that. And at a certain point, like I just had to say like, no, like, you know, this is, you're taking this like way too far. I'm not trying to like do this for you. And he kept trying to hit me up like for a long time after I ghosted him, and like every now and then I still hear from him just like, hey, you know, like I'm in town, I'm wondering if you want to like hang out. And it's like, no dude, no, sorry, not trying to go through that again. Yeah.
Sounds like you should go back to school and get your PhD because you're helping a lot of people.
Yeah, you know, like, I mean, dependency is like a really like unhealthy thing to deal with. Like, but like, you know, I mean, there are definitely times where like I've contributed to toxicity in relationships too. Like, it's not just like a one-way thing, you know. Like, I don't know. I've had like friends that I've like stolen from in the past just because like I've, you know, I didn't have like a lot of like money and stuff like growing up necessarily, so like I would justify it by like, oh, these people have more money than me, so like it's only like it's kind of fair if I take things, or like if I use people like for like their like wealth or whatever, like, and I, you know, use their friendship. But like, you know, that wasn't something that lasted very long, and it was part of when I was going through a really unhealthy period in another time in my life. And like I was eventually able to like be like, no, what is this? Like, this is not what a friend does. You're not being a friend, you're being like a jerk, and you're like stealing from people. And no one ever found out or corrected me, but like, I don't know, I still feel bad about it. Have you guys ever done anything like that, like contributed to like, you know, like toxicity in a relationship, or like done like stuff like that to friends?
Well, in middle school, a lot of stuff happened in middle school. I was in this toxic relationship, and I was actually causing the toxicness because I was influencing a friend of mine to do things like skipping school or not going to class, and I just felt like I was being very toxic to her because she was a good student. She went to class, she had good grades, and yeah, I was being more out there trying to get her to not go to school as much and do bad things.
Oh, with me, I was when I was little, I always had a friend who I went over to their house, and I was always jealous because like their parents were around all the time, and my parents, they were always working, so like after school I'd always like go over to my grandma's house, and like I would only see like my parents for like maybe like 2 hours out of the day, and then they'll like go back to work, like, you know, switching on and off, or they'll be sleeping or something, so I couldn't really bother them. So with one friend, I always try to make myself seem better than them to their parents, so that way like their parents, like they're like, oh, why can't you be more like Robert and everything. And like now looking at it, like, you know, it was kind of stupid, but I don't know, like I was just jealous at the time because like, you know, he had more time to spend with his parents than I did, so I wanted that, I guess, that feeling of having like that parent who's always there.
So like, you know, for both you guys, like when you're like in like sort of a toxic relationship, in the past when you've been in toxic relationships, like what have you, like, what has your experience with other people been like? Like, what do you wish that people had like done to react? How did people react to it? Like, who did you tell? Like, stuff like that. Like, if you told anyone.
Like us being toxic or them being toxic? Like both ways?
Both. You know, either.
Well, with my friend who was who we were on and off with, they were like trying to take my best friend away from me, and so I stopped being friends with them. And eventually, like, it was like slowly, like they were like leaving me out. Like I'll like go and like I'll go and like I'll send them like a Snapchat, and like they deleted me off of Snapchat, and I was like, oh, okay. And then I'll go and then I'll call them, and then they block my number. Like they were completely trying to cut me off from my friend. So eventually my friends started realizing it. They're like, okay, wait a second, they're like, okay, let me like do something. So they went to go Snapchat her. She deleted my friend off of Snapchat. And then she was like, okay, wait, the same thing happened to you happened to me. And it was like a couple months after. So eventually, you know, me and my friend both like cut her off, and then eventually all of her other little group of friends started realizing it, and they're like, okay, obviously like there's something wrong here, like what's going on, what's wrong with you, like why do you keep doing this? And I mean, I don't know how that turned out, but from my end it was just like, hey, lost someone that I really didn't need.
That's what you just kind of got to do, just like adios.
Exactly, like see you later, don't need it. Trash.
What about you, Janai?
Well, people around me, they would say, well, in middle school, when I started to do bad things, people would say, this is not like you, why are you doing these things? And then that was like, got my mind focused, like, they're right, I'm not like this, why am I not going to class, why are my grades slipping? And then it was just good that people realized that I'm not being myself.
I don't know. For me, like, there are definitely like times where I wish that someone had said like, hey, you know, you don't seem like yourself. You seem like upset. You seem like distant, I guess, because it's hard for me to like hide when there are things like that going on in my life. So I wish someone had just taken me aside and kind of said, this is affecting you super negatively. And I wish you would either do something about it or talk to someone about it who can give you the advice that you need to do something about it. And, you know, just advice from like other friends goes a long way in my experience, because it is so validating to just have someone go like, you know you're not alone in this, and we got you, and we're worried about you. So I think that's probably one of the biggest things that someone can do for someone who's in like a toxic relationship.
With me producing like the toxicity, I guess my problem was whenever something happened, I always distance myself, and I always keep like my emotions in, so I don't really let any other emotion out besides like this like happy emotion. And so whenever something happens, I always kept it to myself, which was always a bad thing, because like, you know, you never know when that emotion is gonna let go, because I like, my fear is like if something does happen and then like I snap, and then it will be like on my best friend, and then I completely lost like one of the most important people in my life because of something that I did. That's what I fear. That's a problem for me.
Well, we're gonna wrap up. I'm gonna leave you with a few signs that you're in a toxic relationship. The first sign is you're walking on eggshells, which means you're scared to share your personal opinion because you're afraid what your partner might say. Another sign is that there's a change in your demeanor, which means you're finding yourself doing things that you wouldn't normally do, and that's not like you. And physical violence, which means there's violence, and the relationship is one-sided. So you're putting in more effort than another partner is.
Well, thank you guys so much for watching. Comment below if you've had any experiences in a toxic relationship, and the next episode will be about how the media impacts the Black identity.
See you guys later.
See you later.